Welcome. Good morning. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we're in Treaty 1 territory and the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation and Treaty 3 territory. My name is Neil Harden. I am chairing today's panel. With me via Zoom are Kent Seelan and Robert Hutchings. The assessor today is Clayton Diachin, and the administrative personnel is Sally Caulfield. To the Zoom participants of the hearing, please note you are placed in the waiting room until your property is called upon. When it is your turn, you will be admitted into the meeting. Kindly follow along in the City of Winnipeg's Board Revision YouTube channel for the hearing process. Once the host admits you into the hearing, please close or mute your YouTube player. You will then be permitted to speak with respect to your property. Once your hearing has concluded, you can leave the meeting. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment rule in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the board. The board is appointed annually by council and is independent of it and the city administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order to be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions the applicant may have, then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will be hearing items 1, 2, 5, and 8 on their docket today. Ms. Caulfield, please affirm the assessor's and applicant's testimony for the first item.
Mr. Assessor, please give your full name.
Clayton Diachin.
Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Mr. Navarro, please state your full name.
Marcelo Navarro.
Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I'll be putting the other applicants into the waiting room now.
Okay. So, Mr. Diachin, you may proceed. The first item on our agenda is 705 Regent, so you may proceed with that.
I'm going to just preface all these. They were created by another assessor, so I might not be able to answer some questions regarding them.
Okay. All right, go with the tombstone information, and then I believe there's a non-co-op requested on this one.
Yeah, so this one's file number 23-394, roll number 0900545400, and the address is 705 Regent Avenue West. Roll year 2024, assessed values at $395,000. We recommend to maintain the 2024 assessed value of $395,000. And again, there is a non-co-op. I believe it's on page 8, the last page, is the Canada Post tracking information.
Okay, is that it with respect to the non-co-op?
Yes.
Okay,
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, could the assessor speak up? I'm getting a lot of like hollowness coming from the assessor.
Yeah, I'll hold the mic up. Maybe that'll help.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
okay, so nothing further on a non-co-op, just the tracking record. Okay, Marcelo, on the non-co-op then?
Yes, I have a few questions actually
Oh yeah,
regarding
actually, yeah. So sorry, questions first. Yes.
the first question is Mr. Deitchen, the information request for the 2020 income and expenses would have been made in the spring of 2021. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, if you look at the Canada Post stamp there at the bottom of page 8, just below the chart, it says 2019 Canada Post Corporation. Now, can you tell me exactly when this item was delivered? Is this pertaining to 2019 or is this pertaining to 2020?
That I'm not too sure. That could just be a stamp that they have for on there. I'm not too sure.
Okay. Now, typically there would be an accompanying information with this, and that would be, for example, the actual signature, the Canada Post mailer itself showing where it was mailed to. Can you tell me why this is missing?
Again, I did not create this brief, so I'm not too sure. I'm not sure. Maybe it wasn't available.
Okay. Mr. Chair, those would be my questions. Thank you.
Okay, Kent, any questions on the non-co-op?
No, my questions have been answered, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, Bob, any questions?
No questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, then Marcelo on the non-co-op.
So as I understand, and in conversations with Carrie Reimer, the owner had no record of having received this information. And I believe this is what the problem is that the owner says that they never got it. And, you know, having seen this before, this was something that happened during COVID. Sometimes these things just never got through. There were records of, you know, for example, the mailings going out, but there's no records of the mailings actually having been received. And typically what we will find where this has actually occurred, where the mailing has actually been delivered, is that we will see a signature, we will see the accompanying information about where the mailing was actually sent out to, and none of that is there. You know, from our perspective, there's just not enough information there to warrant the penalty. So that's where I'll leave it at.
Okay, questions, Mr. Diachin?
No questions.
Okay, Bob, any questions?
No, thank you.
Kent?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, and I have no questions, so I think we will take a recess while the board discusses the request for non-co-op and reconvene once we've made a decision. We'll resume then. The board has deliberated and we feel that there's not enough evidence to grant the co-op. We don't know what was sent. We don't know where it was sent to. And that sort of thing. So we can't grant the non-co-op. So the non-co-op is denied. And so, Mr. Deitchen, you can proceed with evaluation.
Sure. Okay, back to page 1 here. This is a 62 property office. It is 1 building with 2 premises.
Mr. Assessor, please
Oh,
bring the mic
Sorry,
closer
yeah.
to you. Thank you.
It is built in 1962. The gross floor area is 3,690 square feet. Leasable area is at 2,827. You can see that we don't have any income and expense information on page 2. there are some aerial photos and some exterior photos on page 2 and 3. Page 4 is the income breakdown. So there's the two premises. The A1 at 1,845 square feet, renting at $13.29 a square foot, giving a potential rent of 24,520. The second one is 982 square feet, the basement area, at $3.24 a square foot, for a potential rent of 3,182, bringing the total potential rent to 27,702. The vacancy loss is 6%. Expenses are at 3%. The shortfall is at $8 per square foot, bringing the net operating income to 23,902, with the cap rate at 6.05%, brings the total value to $395,000 rounded. Bottom of page 4 is the rent comparables for the property. You can see the averages is at $13.50, mediums at $14. So our $13.29 is just below the average. Page 5 is the income value summary, just more or less what I just spoke about. Page 6 is the cap rate table. You can see for the City of Winnipeg offices, the 20th percentile at 5.6 and the 80th percentile at 6.9. So we fall in the middle of that range with our cap rate. Page 7 is the municipal assessment excerpts. And then page 14 is just the non-compliance, or page 8 is the non-compliance stuff. And that is my evidence.
Okay, questions, Marcelo?
Yeah. Pertaining to your comparables on page 4,
Yeah.
these are coming from McLeod, Henderson. So my first question is, why were there not any comparables chosen from Regent Avenue West, where there are some for the subject?
I didn't create this evidence, so I'm not too sure about that.
Okay. Would you agree then that rents that are specific to the area of the subject would probably be more comparable than rents coming from, say, an area that's further away?
Potentially.
Okay. And in terms of your other parameters, again, as you mentioned, I believe you mentioned that this was all model driven, so you made no adjustments to this, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay, Kent, any questions?
Yes, have you visited this property? Has it been inspected?
I have not, no.
Now, just to get this clear, this is a single office location with
Uh,
a floor basement, or is there two pieces to this piece?
There's the main floor and then the basement area.
Do we know what the basement's used for?
I don't.
Okay. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, Bob, any questions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. My first question is, could we get the blended rate, please?
Blended rate. Sorry, this is my first office appeal. I'm not too sure.
Okay, I provided the potential rent 27,702.
Yeah.
The leasable area of 2,827, and I'm getting a blended rate of $9.80. Would you mind confirming that?
That's what I have too, Bob.
Okay, question answered. Thank you. My second question is, Mr. Deitchen, do you know exactly what the location is on Regent Avenue? I see there's a street light intersection, but I'm just, it's located?
Yeah, it's like right on the corner of Regent and Mirage, it looks like. And it kind of backs onto, I think there's a Dollarama, and it used to be like an extra foods in that strip mall.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. Good. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, and I have no questions, so Marcelo, you can begin your presentation.
Yes, so this is 705 Regent Avenue West. If you turn to page 6 of the presentation, you can see that this was, I believe, at one time a former residence, single-family home, judging by the location and the appearance of the property. And you can see that it is, again, there east of Plessis Road along Regent Avenue. And on page 7, you can see that, again, this was a former residence converted to a partial office use in 1987, and in 2010 to 100% office use. One half of the basement is unfinished and used for storage. The other half is an unused recreation room with a shower room and remains unused since the main floor conversion. In terms of the comparables that you see on page 11, these are mainly on Regent Avenue, and I believe that the actual numbers would have been sent to the assessor. I'm not sure if it was Clayton at that time. It might have been Brittany Santucci who this was sent to. But I can go over the addresses for comparisons 1 through 13. So comparison 1, 2, and 3 are 1600 Regent Avenue West. Comparison 4 is 1615 Regent Avenue West. Comparison 5 is 1600 Regent Avenue West. Comparison 6 is 1615 Regent Avenue West. And 7, 8, and 9 are also 1600 Regent Avenue West. Number 10 is 701 Regent Avenue West. Number 11 is 801 Regent Avenue West. Number 12 is 701 Regent Avenue West. And number 13 is 1600 Regent Avenue West. And the majority of these are commercial leases, so they would vary. I can give you some of the names: Pop and Shop Limited, Red Chili's, Fat Panda, The Burger Factory, Pennington's, Transcona Massage Therapy, excuse me, English Testing Canada, Rewind Laser Clinic, Square One Rehab. So it's again, it's a sample of different commercial properties, generally in commercial strip. We wouldn't find too many comparisons to this because, again, this is a single family residence that was converted into a commercial property. But we did take from the area of Regent Avenue West. If you look at our page 12, we have the total square footage as being 22,827 square feet. And we've broken it up between the main floor and the basement. So we have 1845 dedicated to the main floor and 982 to the basement. We've assigned a rent of $12 per square foot for the main floor and $6 for the basement. So we have a potential income of $28,032 for the 27 square feet. And I believe I'll just quickly work that out for you. That equals $992 per square foot. Now, in terms of vacancy allowance, we've gone with the standard parameters in the city's study for this cycle, which was 6%. Shortfall also $8 per square foot. Non-recovered expenses, we have not deviated, so we've gone with 7% as we usually do for most properties. The really large difference is in the capitalization rate of this property. And you can turn to if you turn to page 14, we can see the entire summary. So we've submitted a capitalization report for this. And given the location, given the age of the property, given the type of property that it is, this is not a specific commercial property. It was not designed as a mall or strip mall or anything like that, or even a single commercial property. So, and the age of the property, we've given it a capitalization rate that we think is reflective of what it would probably attain in the marketplace, which is 7.50. So really the biggest difference between the assessor and our interpretation of this is the capitalization rate. So we have an end value of 308,648 or 309,000 rounded. And I'm open for questions. Thank you.
Okay, questions, Mr. Dyachin?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay, Kent, questions?
Sure. Do you have anything that substantiates this cap rate? Like you have a table or something that we could reference?
So yes, that would be in your commercial cap rate study that was submitted along with this package. So we submitted the non-recoverable expense study plus the capitalization rate, commercial capitalization rate.
Can you take us to that document and take us to the page?
Sure. Just give me a minute while I turn there. Okay, so I believe everyone has this. It's the 2023-2024 Realty Assessment Capitalization Rate Study for Retail Properties.
Yes. What page should we go to?
Okay.
Retail, I have one for office properties.
Oh, did you get the office one? Okay. Okay. Just bear with me while I open that one up.
Mr. Navarro, which one are you referring to right now?
I believe, do you have both the office and retail or just the office?
I think it's just the office that I can see.
Okay. Okay. So if we turn to page 17.
Just give us a quick second. Thanks.
Okay. So we have the chart split up between the different classes of property. Now, you'll notice that some of these property classes are not within any of the heritage property, within any of the broker reports. So the brokerage reports really tend to fixate on Class A and Class B. There is no additional emphasis on Class C, Class D, and Class C and Class Ds are less common. Class Ds refer to heritage properties. Class S is suburban. Now there are suburban categories within the brokerage reports. However, the way that we've laid it out is that our risk factor for the cap rates ranges between 6.50 and 7.50 on the suburban office. Now, why we went to the upper end of the category at 7.5. I would think that's kind of self-explanatory given the property itself. It's not a typical office property. It's not in the typical location. It is a former residence, so it is built as a former residence. It's not built as a commercial property. It's being used as a commercial property. So, and it's also, slightly older. It's wood frame. It's built in 1962. It may have received, some updates over the years. However, again, we are not dealing with a very, in our opinion, a well-built commercial property of either steel or masonry design. So that is why it is on the upper end of the scale rather than on the lower end of the scale.
Have you inspected this property yourself?
I have not, as with Mr. Deitchen, I was kind of put on this kind of last minute. So I had some time to familiarize myself with the file. I'm not sure if Mr. Reimer has, I can't speak for him. So I can't really answer that question.
Thank you. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Bob, any questions?
Well, yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure if Marcelo is able to answer this. Pardon me. I'm looking for a view from the top of the property, but it looks like Marcelo on page 7 that there's a double detached garage at the rear plus some parking spots. Would that be right?
Yeah, that's exactly what it looks like.
Okay. All right. That is my only question. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, and I'm just looking, the NOIs are very close together. So really the issue is the cap rate then, that's going to decide
Yes.
the issue. Okay, so now I have no more questions. You will lead us through the cap rate. Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the next item on the agenda, item 2. Let me just open the files. And that is 134 Plaza Drive and classification liability as well as value is appealed. So Mr. Diachin, can you give us the tombstone information for this property?
File number 23-397, roll number 03-05-401-9000. The address is 134 Plaza Drive, roll year 2024. Assessed value is $3,873,000. It is one building with 3 premises, built in 1986, with a total leasable area of 21,066 square feet. We recommend to maintain the 2024 assessed value at $3,873,000. And I guess looking forward to the applicant's brief, it looks like they are looking for confirmation of the 2024 value.
Yeah, I was going to turn to that. Marcelo, since you've appealed classification liability, I guess you have to speak to that first.
Yes, I believe. Well, first of all, I'll give you some background, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
We were informed by, I believe it may have been the assessor, that that there would be a supplementary coming to this property at some point soon. So I guess from our perspective, it's one of either two courses. Either the file can be adjourned to a later date. I'm not sure when exactly the assessor would be, issuing that supplementary. But seeing as they didn't, I believe they did inform us that there would be a supplementary on this, then that's one course. Or the other course is that we could simply confirm everything, because at this point, everything is kind of moot. There's going to be, again, a change coming to this property. So I don't really know the course of action at this point.
I believe any supplementary any sup would render the current appeal moot.
Yeah.
Depending upon when it's of course the sup is dated. But so would render this if it just held in abeyance, you basically have to re-appeal the sup if you don't agree with it. So I feel that then probably the best course of action is just to confirm the current appeal.
Right.
Well, I shouldn't be giving advice, but I mean, yeah.
We'll ask for confirmation then.
Okay, as per your brief.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Diachin, is there any questions you have on the request for confirmation?
Nope. I think that was it.
Okay, Bob, any questions?
No questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Excuse me.
Kent, any questions?
No questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, I've just got one question, more of a curiosity than anything. The 40S classic liability and classification, is it used for what's it used for, basically? Does anybody know?
So I believe that this would have been a nonprofit agency that that was there to help. I can't remember the section of the act that it pertains to, but it's school tax exempt because it
Yeah.
is a charity, and it
It-
does.
It is Mennonite Central Committee.
Yeah.
Is it?
So,
Okay.
yeah.
So it would be under section 20, one of the subsections under 23. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. So then I guess we can bring in the other appellants then for the next property, which is 60 Adelaide.
Okay. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you,
Bye, Marcel.
Marcel.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
The other applicants have been brought in from the waiting room. I'm just waiting for them to unmute. There they are.
Okay, we'll have to swear them in.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Good morning.
Okay, Sally, can you swear them in?
All right, I believe everyone is here. Please state your full name.
Wesley Van Bruggen.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Grayson Sharples.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we're dealing with 60 Adelaide Street. So Mr. Diachin, you can proceed with the tombstone information, and I understand there's a non-cooperation penalty requested. So once you've done the tombstone information, you can deal with the non-co-op.
This is file number 23-334. Roll number 13099068910. The address is 60 Adelaide Street. And we are looking to maintain the 2024 assessed value of $373,000. And there is a non-co-op. Scroll down to, I believe it's page 8 and on. You can see that all the mailers are combined with another property. Full slide right here. Yeah, so it's combined with 54 Adelaide. So we have no way of deciphering the expenses for the subject property.
Okay. Mr. Appellant, do you have questions on the non-co-op for the city?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. First question is, have you ever been to the property?
I have not, no.
So in this case, this is a parking lot that services the office building, both owned by the same owner. Were you aware that both 54 Adelaide and 60 Adelaide were owned by the same owner?
I was not.
Okay. Also, are you aware that 54 Adelaide is only used to service the office building? It's actually not. It's private parking, and is not rented to anybody else. Is that?
No, I didn't create this brief, so I'm not too sure about that.
Okay. Then I guess at that point, I'll deal with the rest through our summary, or through our presentation. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Hutchings, questions?
Mr. Deitchen, so the only contention here is that because they've submitted income and expense for two parking lots that they own, that's not considered correct submission of income and expense for this particular roll number. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Okay, and the second address that they submitted, is it nearby or is it?
I would assume it's very close by. It's 54 Adelaide.
Maybe that's irrelevant. I'm sorry. That's it doesn't matter. Okay, that's my only question. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Kent, any questions?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, the question I have, is 54 Adelaide also a parking lot? There is an office building.
It looks like it's an office building right next door.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Mr. Van Bruggen, you can proceed on your presentation on the non-co-op then.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. If we can turn to page 2 of the assessor's brief. And just let me know when you're there.
Yep.
Okay, sounds good. So just for the board's reference, as we're looking at the aerial photos, the property highlighted and outlined in purple is 60 Adelaide, and the property directly kind of below it on Adelaide Street, 54 Adelaide, is the office building that's owned by the same owner. And if the board will roll down with me to page 3, it makes it a little bit easier. You can see that 60 Adelaide is the parking lot. You'll see that there's a note there saying assigned parking only, and then right beside it is the office building that this parking lot services. I have done a site inspection on this property. I've talked to the property owner. The property owner runs a architectural and interiors design company out of the building. The parking lot is used for his employees, as parking in the area can be difficult to find. So he provides that as a service to the employees, so they're able to use that. He does not rent out the parking lot in any way. There are no direct expenses related to the parking lot. The only thing would probably be property tax, because everything else would be covered, would be taken care of under the office building, as he indicated, that as you can see on page 8, on the assessor's brief, he indicates on expenses covered under 54 Adelaide. He also indicates that it's owner occupied only. And then if you go down on page 10, you can see parking is fully occupied by owner, Newmark Architect, and RH Design, 54 Adelaide. Expenses are included in 54 Adelaide report. So again, what the city's asking for is not something that can be provided, because that's not how this owner runs his business. He's not running a parking lot business, but rather the parking lot supports the office where he runs his own business. So with that, it would be M&P's position that it's unreasonable to request non-compliance because it is clear that the owner has complied. And then if you go down to page 14, you can see the income and expense mailer, which had been provided for 54 Adelaide, which was filled out as requested. So as far as I'm aware, there's no issue with the mailer for 54 Adelaide. So again, it would be our position that the owner has cooperated to the best of their abilities, and that the request for non-cooperation should be denied.
Okay, questions, Mr. Diachin?
What was the income and expense mailer for 60 Adelaide filled out?
My understanding is if you take a look at page 8, you'll see the property address 60 Adelaide on top. And then you can see that on 60 Adelaide, it indicates that expenses covered under 54 Adelaide. So it had been returned, it had been filled out by the owner. And then if you look at page 10, again, this is for 60 Adelaide. They've indicated that parking is fully occupied by the owner and the expenses are included in 54 Adelaide. So they did go to the trouble of filling it out and returning it, indicating that everything would be on the income and expense mailer for 54 Adelaide.
Okay, no further questions.
Okay, Kent, questions?
No questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Bob, questions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. To the applicant, on the bottom of page 3, please.
Yes.
The photo of the parking lot, does it goes right up to that loading dock, is that right? It's the width of kind of a lane in the parking lot with parking available and a loading dock on that side, is that right?
So I'm just taking a look. So the loading dock is actually it for a different building. So the parking lot only goes halfway down. So the building that you see on the bottom there, I believe it's MTS, this is a view from the other side of the street. So the parking goes basically halfway down that lane.
I guess page 2 is a better shot. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's from a bird's eye view. Okay, so we see where it goes down. There's a jog where that loading dock would be. That's the shadow there. Is that right? But the property, or pardon me, the applicant does own those spots that are available along that jog. Then it comes back in. Okay. And it's physically used for a parking lot.
It's physically used to meet the parking needs of his office building and his employees.
Okay. And as far as you know, it's always been a separate roll number and probably title?
As far as I'm aware, yes.
Yeah, okay. That's all my questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, and I just want to confirm then the financial statements for 54 Adelaide, they include all do the two properties have one combined set of financial statements?
They operate as one. So the parking lot supports the office building. The office building is owner occupied.
Okay, so the owner then would have to do a bit of creative accounting to separate the expenses out then.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, there'd be feasibly, there's no way to separate the two. Like he pays for the hydro for the site. He's since turned it off. He's had some problems with it. He covers all the maintenance, like all that would be covered on that he would be dealing with for his office building. So he doesn't look at them as two separate entities. He looks at them as one.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, could I ask a question arising?
Sure.
Does the applicant know that they pay a separate tax bill for this roll number?
I would assume there would be probably a separate tax bill because it's a separate roll number.
Yeah.
But Yeah, I would assume there would be a separate one because it's a separate roll number. I don't know how he does his internal accounting though.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
All right, so then we will we'll recess while we consider the non-co-op request, and we'll come back in due course.
Thank you.
So we will reconvene. The panel has discussed the request for non-co-op, and we're going to deny the request. We feel that the owner was in substantial compliance, and where financial statements are combined, there's no requirement for the owner to separate the financial statements for the two properties if they're not already separated. So for those reasons, we're denying the non-co-op. So, Mr. Diachin, you can proceed on valuation.
So this is surface parking built in 1954. Assessed values at $373,000. Page 2, you can see the stuff is considered incomplete.
Mr. Assessor, your microphone,
Sorry,
please.
yeah. Bottom of page 2 is the overhead views of the parking lot. Page 3 is the exterior photos, the ground view of them. Page 4 here is the market income breakdown. So it is parking unheated 30 stalls at $51.75 per stall, giving an annual net rent of $18,630. At a cap rate of 5%, brings the value to $373,000 rounded. Bottom of page 4 is the comparable properties for the property. And as you can see, it gives a bit of a range of $38 to all the way up to $116.65. So I find that we fit right in that range. And comparable 1 is very close. It's across the street on Hargrave. Comparable 2, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 9 are all within 2 blocks. So they're all very close to the subject property. Excuse me. Page 5 is the income value summary, which I spoke about. Page 6 is the capitalization rate tables. Continue on to the Municipal Assessment Act on page 7. And then the rest of the pages is the combined mailers for the property. And that is my evidence. Thank you.
Okay, questions for the assessor? Mr. Van Bruggen, I believe.
Mr. Sharples will take a lead on this.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have no questions.
All right, Bob, any questions for the assessor?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Kent?
Just a quick question on the reported rental rates for surface parking. Are these electrified stalls, or are these, how do you say, is there no hydro here?
For my comparables? Or the
Yes.
I'm not too sure. I didn't pull these comparables. Sorry. I'm not too sure.
Quick question, whereabouts is Galt Avenue?
Alt? Close. I was actually just looking at all these. So Galt is close to waterfront, actually. Yeah. It's in between Lily Street and waterfront.
Thank you. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
All right, Bob, any questions?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Deitchen, on page 4, it shows the subject property. Am I right here? It does have some casual parking income, is that right?
Sorry, say it again.
Pardon me.
Yes, it does. Sorry. Yeah.
It does have the subject has some casual income?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's my only question.
Okay, I have no questions, so Mr. Sharples, I believe, your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just begin on page 3 of our evidence submission. Give everyone just a couple seconds to get there. So, brief description of the subject. It is a surface parking lot with 30 stalls located in West Alexander, and it is 10,196 square feet. So the current assessment is for $373,000, and we're requesting that that be reduced to $326,000. On page 4, we just have a snippet of the current assessment. And on page 5 is how we've derived our requested value. So the subject had been assessed at a monthly rent per stall of $51.75. We are requesting that this be reduced to $45.35 per stall per month. And that's how we've arrived at our valuation of $326,000. On pages 6 and 7, we've just included the valuation breakdown for the subject. And on page 8, we have both the assessment map and satellite image of the property. And page 9, we just have some more aerial photos of the parking lot. On page 10, we have provided our comparables for the parking rate. So we've pulled 7 comparables that we believe to be similar, and they have a stabilized net operating income per stall per month that ranges from about $38.75 all the way up to about $52.81. So this gets us an average of $45.35 and a median of $42.06. And so this is below the current assessment of $51.75. And I do apologize in the table there. It does say $51.75 per square foot. That is per stall per month. So on the following page, we've provided a map that outlines where all these comparable parking lots are located. So the red location marker is the subject property. It's 60 Adelaide Street. And then, so we see that all these comparables are located just on the outskirts of downtown. At the bottom of the page, going through the next couple pages, we have just some aerial photos of the comparable properties. So at the bottom of page 11 is 248 Sherbrooke. The stabilized NOI per stall per month for this one is $40.88. At the top of page 12, this is the parking lot on Spence Street with a stabilized NOI of $49.61. Below that on page 12 is 444 Balmoral. Stabilized NOI here is $42.06. Top of page 13 is 215 Good Street. So there are 53 parking stalls here, and the stabilized NOI is $52.81. And then Galt Ave at the bottom of the page, 65 parking stalls with a stabilized NOI of $41.30. And on page 14, we have 308 Edwin Street, 48 parking stalls with an NOI of $52.05. And then 105 Galt Ave at the bottom of that page. It's just 10 parking stalls, but NOI of $38.75. And so in conclusion, on page 15, we are requesting that the monthly rate per stall per month be adjusted to the average rate of all our comparables, which is $45.35, which leads us to a new assessment value of $326,000. Starting on page 16, we just have some supporting documentation. So pages 16 and 17, we just have the notice of hearing. And beginning on page 18, we just have the City of Winnipeg guidelines for income properties. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, questions, Mr. Dyachin?
Just one question. Looking at page 11 for the map of your comparable sales, I can see a few that are relatively far away from the subject property. Is there a reason why some of the closer comparables weren't pulled, like such as from Hargrave and Cumberland and Smith?
Yeah, we don't have a ton of market data for parking lots. So this is just all the information we had available to us.
No further questions.
Okay, Bob, questions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Regarding page 10 of your brief, as the assessor pointed out, these appear to be I'll put it this way, are these inferior locations to the Exchange District parking lots?
We believe they're comparable locations. I mean, they're all close to downtown, just on the outskirts of it.
Okay.
We do believe they are reasonably close in proximity.
All right. Are there any located in the Exchange District that you've listed there? I'm just looking at your map. Is Galt Avenue? I'm not sure. Or is that?
Yeah, I'm not sure if the Galt Ave ones would be.
I guess that's considered Point Douglas, I guess. Okay. Now I see it on the map on your page 11. Okay. That's all my questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, Kent, any questions?
Sure. Does the subject property have hydro?
I'm not entirely sure, to be honest with you. I don't know if Mr. Van Bruggen would have a better idea of that.
Yeah, I can jump in here. The subject property does have plugins, however, they have been disconnected. There's been a number of problems with the plugins being used in ways that are not, they weren't intended to be used for. So the owner has made and also the copper wire continuously gets torn out. So last conversation I have with the owner, I don't know if the copper wire was if they had replaced the copper wire at that point, or if they just decided just to leave it out again.
Okay, is the owner actually leasing these spaces, or are these spaces just for staff?
These spaces are just for staff.
Okay. The comparables, do they have hydropower, or are they, how would you say, are they hydro-less?
I'm not entirely sure.
Okay,
We haven't looked into that.
sure. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
All right, and I have no more questions, so that does it for this property. We'll go on to our last property, which is 10 Royal Mint Drive. Let me just open the files for those. Okay, so Mr. Dyachin on 10 Royal Mint Drive.
File number 23-367, full number 060934700070. Address is 10 Royal Mint Drive. Roll year 2024. Assessed value is at $2,504,000. And it is vacant commercial. The land area is 125,208 square feet. And we are recommending to maintain the 2024 assessed value at $2,504,000 based on the 2023 border revision order on page 4, which I'll jump to. Or, sorry, I'll just continue on here first. You can see that there was a sale, but it was post-reference, so it looks like it was taken out there. And then I guess we could skip to page 4, where the 2023 border revision order is, as you can see, it was reduced from $2,907,000 to $2,504,000. And continuing on page 6 is just more information from that brief. Page 7 is some aerial shots of the lot. Page 8 is the comparables for the property. You can see that it ranges from 2037 a square foot to 3506 a square foot for the sale price. And on page 9 is the land sale comparables. So comparable 1 is so it shows comparable 1, 2, 3, and 4 on pages 4 or 9 and 10. Page 11 is the Municipal Assessment Act excerpts, and that is my evidence. Thank you.
Okay, questions, Mr. Sharples?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So just looking at pages 4 and 5, the previous year's board decision, it would be correct to say that you were not involved in this hearing?
I was not, no. Nope.
And so on the top of page 5, it says that the decision was based on the verbal recommendation presented by the Assessment and Taxation Department. Do you know if any evidence was presented in this hearing, or if the board decision was based off the comparables provided?
I believe it is off the comparables, but I'm not too sure. I can't speak on that.
Okay. That is all my questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Kent, any questions?
Your comparables, I see you have comparable 3 and 4. These comparables aren't close to the subject property. Is comparable 1 and 2 close to the current subject property?
I'm not too sure. I didn't have time to look at all these. I could look if you want.
We'll give you a second.
It looks like the first one's like a 15-minute drive from it. Yeah, they're about that distance away. And again, these are the variables that were used in that previous.
Thank you. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Bob, questions?
I'm not sure if you can answer this, Mr. Deitchen, but the comparable is zoned as C3 and pardon me, sorry, the subject is C3, comparables are C2. Would you know the difference in that zoning at all?
Fortunately, I don't. I'm not. No, I'm not too sure.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Would it have something to do with the density allowed or a mixture of usage?
Potentially, yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
I don't want to speak and say anything.
fair enough. Okay. That's my only question. Thank you.
All right, I have no questions. So, Mr. Sharples, your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, we'll just begin on page 3 of our evidence brief. So the subject property is a 2.9 acre parcel of vacant commercial land located in Southland Park. The current assessment amount is $2,504,000, and we are requesting that this be reduced to $1,435,000. This will be based on the sale of the subject property. On page 4, again, just a snippet of the current assessment. And on page 5, again, just our requested value of $1,435,000. On page 6, we again have the assessment map and satellite imaging of the subject property. And some aerial photos on page 7. And I guess I will note that on the satellite image on the bottom of page 6, I believe is outdated. The photos on page 7 are more recent. And those photos on page 7 are from July, I believe, of 2021, either May or July. And so on page 8, we have our valuation. So again, it was mentioned earlier that there was a post facto sale of the subject property. We have a purchase of a copy of the purchase agreement that will show that this was actually agreed to before the valuation date. And so this piece of land was purchased in 2020 for $1,435,000. So this is significantly below the current assessment. The previous owner of this was Imperial Oil, and there are contamination concerns with the land. And so we have included the purchase agreement in its entirety in the appendix of this document. We'll just pull a few snippets from it to kind of highlight some key things here. So the bottom of page 8, we just have it notes the purchase price. So again, $1,435,000. On page 9, we have a few notes from the purchase agreement that outline some of these environmental concerns. So the first one at the top of the page is just an acknowledgement that the property has been used for storage, sale, and transfer of petroleum products, other hydrocarbons, or their derivatives and additives. And then a note, kind of point 9.1 2 there that the real property is being sold as is, and the purchaser agrees to purchase the real property as is. And so then in 9.4 there, the snippet on the bottom of the page, highlighted in the red box, it says, in the determination of the purchase price, the vendor and purchaser confirm and agree that past, present, and future environmental matters have been taken into account in establishing the value of the real property. So again, this shows that there are environmental concerns with this property, and they have been taken into consideration in the purchase price. And moving on to page 10, we have the acceptance date from the purchase agreement here. So again, the first box highlighted, this value was agreed to on December 7th, 2020. And then point B, the vendor accepts this offer on the first day of February 2020. Now, I think there may be a typo here. I think it's likely this was the first day of February 2021. But regardless, this is before the valuation date of April 1st, 2021. So again, we believe that this purchase agreement indicates that the purchase price was agreed to before the valuation date, and this price has taken into consideration the environmental concerns with the land. And from this, we're requesting that the assessment be reduced to the purchase price of $1,435,000. And then, so the purchase agreement in its entirety can be found beginning on page 15. Going all the way through to the end of the document, actually. And we've also included the notice of hearing on pages 11 and 12. So again, we respectfully request the board to reduce the assessment value to the purchase price of $1,435,000. And with that, I conclude the presentation and welcome any questions.
Okay, Mr. Deitchen, questions?
Yeah, I guess regarding the sale, do you have any insight to why it would have taken about 6 months for it to pass through land titles? Because we have May 31st, 2021 as a registration date.
Yeah, there has been a delay in land titles. I think that's likely all it was. I think the purchase agreement shows that the price was agreed to prior to the valuation date, and then yeah, it makes sense to us that it would have taken 3 months to pass through land titles.
Okay. Did you guys do any workups or pull any comparables for this subject property?
We have not pulled any comparables for this property. No, we have just looked at the subject purchase price.
So, is it safe to say you're basing your evaluation solely on the single sale?
Yeah, it would be our position that because of the contamination on the site, there are very few comparable properties, and we believe that the purchase price takes into consideration the environmental concerns, and because it was purchased very shortly prior to the valuation date, this is the best indicator of market value for this property.
Does one sale make a market?
No, but again, there are very few comparable land parcels with the contamination. It can be hard to determine the value of contaminated land, and we believe that that has been taken into consideration here.
No further questions. Thanks.
Okay, Bob, any questions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. to the applicant, please. Any remediation costs available from the owner that you're aware of?
No, we aren't aware of any specific remediation costs. None of that was included in the purchase agreement either. I will just point to the paragraph from the purchase agreement on page 9 again, where it notes that the environmental concerns have been factored in to the determination of the purchase price for the land.
Okay, thank you. I believe in the documents it says future uses for building of a car wash. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe that is correct.
Yeah, okay. And that's what the purchaser's business is. Will this this contamination prevent a car wash from being built on that property?
I'm not entirely sure. So it wasn't outlined. There was an environmental assessment done on the property. The results of that assessment were not included in the purchase agreement. So I'm not too sure about that.
Okay. And I guess my last question is, since the purchase, has the current owner done any remediation at all to the property?
I don't do that.
We're looking at the current physical condition of the property, so I'm trying to determine whether there's been any steps taken to remediate the negative effect on the property.
Not to my knowledge. I don't know if Mr. Van Bruggen has any additional insight there.
No, I don't believe any steps have been taken since the purchase of the property.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Kent, any questions?
No, my questions have been answered. That's
Okay.
all. Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Just wondering, the buyer and seller aren't in any way related, are they?
No, they're not. So the seller was Imperial Oil, and the purchaser was, they're noted as the Reenders Car Wash Limited. This is the Chamois Car Wash Group.
Chamois Car Wash Group. Okay. All right. So yeah, they're not. I was just wondering if they were operating some Esso stations or anything like that on there with their car washes or anything like that. Okay. I have no further questions. So thank you very much. We have now heard all the properties on the agenda, and this hearing is now adjourned. So again, once again, gentlemen, thank you for your presentations.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.